Welcome to the Hard to Kill podcast, the go-to podcast for military, LEO, and EMS professionals, sharing ideas and experiences from around the world to make you hard to kill. Here's your host, Dave Morrow.
Welcome, ladies and gents. Today we're sitting down with Manuel Panchana, buddy of mine and former member of the Canadian Grenadier Guards, one of my former unit as well. And I have him on the show today because he wrote a book, which is freaking awesome. So I always try to have as many veteran authors on as possible because it's a space that I think is really growing. And, being a part of that space too, it's always cool to reach out. And especially when you're a buddy too, to find out kind of what was your inspiration to start writing and to put together a beast of a book like this one here, which we're going to get into today. Must have been a really, like you said, labor of love. So Manny, welcome to the show, man. And why don't you give the listeners just a little taste of your background, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty of the Nominal Echo Chronicles.
All right. Thanks for having me, Dave. And it's good to talk to you after so long. Seems like it's been a long time,
dude. I think the last time we had last time we had a really in-depth conversation was 6 years ago. There was your wedding, and then there was time. A few years after.
A couple of visits in Ottawa. Yeah.
So it's cool to be doing this.
Yeah. So for the people out there, like Dave said, I'm Manny. I'm a member of the Canadian Forces. I'm not yet a veteran. I'm still serving. I've been in since 1999. I spent my first few years at the Canadian Guards, where I met Dave. And so many, many, many years ago now. And I transferred to the regular force a few years after that, and I've been there. I'm there since. About the book, how did I get into it? I've always enjoyed writing. I'd like to say I first started writing when I was in CEGEP, I think in Montreal, in French at the time. I wrote a couple of short stories for the school's literary publication, I suppose, that managed to make it through and get published there. But I've never really had the inclination to devote a significant amount of time. And the other thing that I do a lot is a lot of thinking. In fact, one of my interests is philosophy. I've read I would like to say a goodly amount of philosophy books. I took a lot of electives in school because I'm a hard science stream from my schooling. I've got a degree in physics, but I always enjoy thinking. And over the years, I had a bunch of ideas that would pop into my mind that I would find interesting. And I would think about them a little bit. I would say, oh, that's a cool question, or things like that. And then at some point, and I don't really know when, but I started thinking, you know what, maybe I could write a book and put some of these things down on paper. And it kind of worked out. And the fact that I had a few things that I wanted to address as topics, even if surface deep, actually drove directly the format of the book, because it's I would like to think it's kind of a unique novel, the way that it's written. And I think you get an inclination of that just by the title, because it's kind of like the chronicle. It spans a very long time. And all the chapters deal with different things, different characters, different topics by and large. So it kind of gave me the chance to actually, in different parts of the book, touch on different things without it having to be one story, although there is an overarching narrative for the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. What's cool about this is that it's an actual novel. It's not like my book is like an instruction manual, right? It's like a textbook. And a lot of other books that veterans have written that I've read are based on their experiences, right? They're actual accounts. So, it's historical. Yours, straight up fiction, which is really cool. And do you mind if I just read kind of the back just to give people just a taste of what it's all about? So folks, the Nominal Echo Chronicles thoughtfully explores the idea that humanity may be destined to thrive beyond Earth. I think that alone, that first sentence, I was like, whoa. I was like, that's solid. And it's a chance at a new beginning for humanity worth the incredible cost in lives and resources. Can drastic actions be justified to achieve fundamental goals for the common good? Can humanity unify under a common objective? Man, that's really cool. So the kind of like the plot. I've only read the first chapter. I just got it yesterday on Amazon. So I've gone through the first chapter, and like just from what I get, the first thing that comes to mind, and I don't know if you've read these books, but clearly this is like very like sci-fi, like very philosophical type book. But have you ever read The Forever War? Has that book ever crossed your path?
No.
Okay.
What's the name again?
The Forever War.
Forever War. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a great book, and I have it here.
Make a note of it.
Yeah, so I can drop that in the show notes too. But it's by Joe Haldeman. So he won the Nebula Award actually for it, and he was actually inspired by Heinlein with Starship Troopers. And it's a cool concept because he was a Vietnam vet, and he was basically saying like war sucks, being in the military sucks. Like, so it was very anti-war in that sense, as opposed to like Heinlein's, which was really, I guess, I wouldn't say it was pro-military, but it definitely had a lot of kind of like the theme in there was like you can be like a better human being by joining the military. So they're contrasted a little bit, but the Forever War takes over. It goes over a span of like 3,000 years. It starts in like 1997 and ends in the year like 3,124 due to like time dilation.
Wow.
Because they're traveling like past Pluto. They're fighting this alien invasion. And it's just really cool because they go through the whole kind of social change, and kind of the first chapter you're talking about social constructs. So what's the framework, man? How did you start thinking about, okay, I want to do basically this is like I don't want to call it like an opera, but it definitely has, it spans a long period of time. So there's a lot of elements, it's not just one fixed time and space. You had to think about, like what's the future might be like and how you're going to build kind of that world. Take us through your thought process, man. It seems really impressive.
So it's kind of weird how it came to be, because once I kind of settled that on the format and I actually started writing, the first chapter that I wrote, it's actually somewhere in the middle of the book. I would say that it's one of the shorter chapters, and it's not even one of the ones that I personally like the most. So it's really weird, because I started that, and from that particular chapter, I had to start extrapolating, like you said, what the future. And here in this book, we're not talking about far future. Like the span of the book, we're talking about 3/4 of a century, give or take. But I had to start extrapolating and going back also to say, okay, well, where does this all start? Or where do I want it to start, and start building from there to make sure that that everything makes sense, I guess, and things tying together nicely. And I had to do a lot of research because I wanted the scientific aspect of it, because it's not kind of genre science fiction. Like there's no space battle. There's none of that stuff. There's the overarching narrative about the fact that we have found a planet that could be potentially inhabitable, and then humanity kind of maybe decides that that's something that we should do, and what would it take, and what would be the difficulties and all that kind of stuff to actually do it. So I had to do a lot of research to see, well, how long would take certain technologies to be ready, and what would they actually look like, and because I don't want to I don't want the reader to have to suspend their disbelief too much. So you don't have to make big leaps of faith to be like, okay, I'm buying into that, or even though I know it's not going to happen, kind of thing. Certainly, I'm taking some liberties in like some let's say some technologies that may be in development now. Maybe they started to be developed earlier, which is not really that unbelievable if you think as to how these things get funded. You know what I mean? A lot of projects start up, and then people say, no, we're going to cut that out. We're not going to continue to explore that particular technology because we're putting our priorities here. But if somebody had made a different decision at the time, maybe that technology would be where you need it to be now, or 10 years or 20 years, or whatever the case. So I try to be as I don't want to say as accurate as possible, but fairly accurate with the technologies. And at the end of the day, it's not what the book is about. I wanted the book to be fleshed out about, like the human challenges that would come with all this, and some of those fundamental questions, like, well, should we be doing this, or should we be spending more to safeguard our planet and other things, you know what I mean? Like, or solving our own social problems and all that kind of stuff, as opposed to, thinking about going even further into space than the moon or Mars or whatever you want to.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept, and I always knew you were, I knew you had your background in physics, so like this seems to be right up your alley, and I'm curious to know what is your take on like interstellar travel, like as a species. What is your take on basically what our destiny is as a species?
Well, some of my thoughts on that are in the book. I don't want to keep too much away. You can
Right.
you can read about it after you do read. You can get back to me and see if you actually tease that out of the book. Although it's pretty plain. But I don't know. I feel like it's a natural step. Like humans have been explorers. Since the beginning of recorded history, I guess, if not before, right? And it sounds cliche that space is the next or the last frontier or what have you, but we kind of, why wouldn't we if we can? You know what I mean? And I understand that there's some people that might disagree, and that's completely valid because it takes money, it takes time, it takes effort, it takes all these things. But I also, if you look at like the Canadian Space Agency, for example, and a lot of the work they do is really focused on the benefit that they can do to people on Earth right now. You know what I mean? It's not really about that. I think they have a space exploration branch in there, and I'm sure and they're participating in all these projects like going back to the moon and all that kind of stuff that is coming up. That is really exciting. But they're also very concentrated on what can we do for people here now with the technologies that we can develop for space that 2 generations down the road are further out to earthbound applications, or with the science that we can do in space, and all that kind of stuff. So I think there's value in continuing to do that, but interstellar travel, I mean, that's going to take a leap, right? I mean, to be able to actually get to the point where you can actually propel something to go fast enough so that in a human lifetime you can actually make it to a different star. That's pretty significant. I mean, the amount of energy that it would take to either use like light propulsion or some other thing. Obviously, the science fiction cliches, the warp fluid,
Right.
Can that become a reality? And I've read some papers even recently, which is like, yeah, theoretically possible, but even for like subluminal speed, so like very fast, but still under the speed of light, the amounts of energy that it would take are incredible. Because to go over the speed of light, even though some people may say you can do it theoretically, even if it would be possible, I think it would take dark energy or some type of exotic materials that would be very difficult to produce or whatnot. And
we're putting Einstein's theories to
works.
We're putting Einstein's theories to like a serious test at that point, right? Like,
yeah, for sure. But I mean, subluminal. I think the latest paper that I wrote was that you could probably build a warp drive with conventional matter or energy, but it would still be much more energy that we can actually produce realistically.
Yeah. So, are you aware of the Breakthrough Starshot project?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. I figured you must be, because you talk about Alpha Centauri, right? And I'm a space nerd too. And it's just something I've always been fascinated with, and it kind of drives a lot of my pursuits. Because I always, when I was in high school, Dave Williams, who's a Canadian astronaut, was a graduate of my high school, and he came and did a talk, and I was in grade 7 or 8. I was very impressionable, like we all are, right? And he showed up and he drives like Ferraris and Corvettes. He just collected cars, and he had this big, like, badass mustache, fit dude, knew what he was talking about. And he's an astronaut. And I'm like, oh, that's what I want to do. But then that fizzled. It was just, I just want to like read up more on just space. And like, I collected Star Trek cards, and like, it was always in that science fiction world, like a total dork, but then didn't go any further than that, right? So it's always been one of those things, and I talk about it with my son all the time. Like, he wants to go to the moon. He's like, I'm gonna take you and mom and Olivia, and we're gonna go to Mars. And then I'm like, oh, cool, like maybe you'll do that. But that's subsequently led me to learn about all the different things that are going on, especially in the research and development.
Yeah.
And the Breakthrough Starshot project, when I heard about it, blew my mind. I was like, what? Like, this is actually a thing. So for those that don't know what this project is, let me just pull it up here. So it is it was Stephen Hawking. Obviously he's not with us anymore, but Yuri Milner, Mark Zuckerberg are like the three major players here, because they've got billions of dollars. Stephen Hawking, I don't think I had billions of dollars, obviously, but the other two do. And they're bankrolling essentially the first interstellar voyage for humanity, not manned, but with these small little solar sails, if I like small robots, if I understand correctly. Maybe you could help me on that one. But essentially to send to Alpha Centauri, because that's where if we're gonna find intelligent life, that's our next best shot. But the goal is to go at a quarter of the speed of light, if I understand correctly. So it would take about 40 years. So. 40 years to get there, 25 years, I think,
20,
to get there.
20.
Yeah, and then send a signal back.
Yeah.
That would be incredible. So is that something that you took into consideration when writing the book?
Yeah, absolutely. I looked into all of those things, and I mean, Breakthrough Starshot, well, it's pretty great. And the fact that it's kind of, well, it's not crowd funded, but it's crowdsourced. Like everything is open source, right? And everything is out there, and people are putting up the problems that need to be solved, so that anybody who feels so inclined to actually tackle a problem, try to solve it, like light propulsion and what this nano spacecraft are going to look like, and how big they can be and whatnot. And I think I've seen some renderings which are pretty neat, which is like a tiny little, nano spacecraft, but with a big solar sail, basically, like you catch, like light energy and propel and be propelled to I guess to a somewhat relativistic speed. I guess 20% light is pretty fast.
Yeah.
But I think the relativistic effects would be pretty low still. But yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'm fascinated by that stuff. Also fascinated by space, what we're going to do. And like neatly enough, so the Lunar Gateway is coming up in a few years. We're going to build a space station around the moon. But sooner than that, in 2023, if you're interested in your SpaceNet 2, there's a project called Dear Moon. I don't know if you've heard of it. So this is by a Japanese billionaire, I think. I'm not even going to try and butcher his name on this, but you can Google Dear Moon. And basically what he did is that,
Moon?
Yeah, that's right. Okay. That's right. DEAR. And so the SpaceX rocket that is being developed to go to the moon, he bought basically all 8 passenger seats. Actually 9. I think himself had 8 more.
I heard about
and he's holding a contest or a selection process.
Yeah.
For 8 people around the world that would like to go to the moon with him to actually apply. And there's going to be an interview process and training and whatever. But whoever these people can be, I think in 2023, if there's no developmental delays with the SpaceX rocket, they would take a week to go to the moon. I think it's like 3 days there, a day around, and 3 days back, I think. On the first SpaceX rocket that we do that. So that's pretty cool. I mean, the fact that we're going to go back to the moon I'm pretty sure that by 2025. I think the milestones are earlier, but if you add some fudge, I would say by 2025, probably there's going to be people on the moon again. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no kidding, man.
We've all seen the pictures, but we'll get to see it live probably again.
Yeah, in our lifetime in HD. Yeah, it's just something that we haven't had the chance to experience, right? Because like that whole boom in the 60s,
a generation and a half, removed.
Yeah, we had rovers and it's cool. Like I love the new stuff coming from Mars, like the new rover with the helicopter. I was just like, what's going on? Like it's cool to see that once the will is there, like the rapid acceleration of progress, growth, and just technological advancement has been really, really cool. So that's for me, like I'm fascinated by all that stuff because I think it's, my point of view is I think humanity's role is to expand our consciousness and to expand it not only like through the planet, but through the solar system and so on and so forth. And I've been influenced by other writers too, and other books that just kind of gave me that perspective that, for me, I'm not an overly religious person, but I do feel that there's this like overarching kind of force in the universe that like we're here and we've got some sort of purpose and we're trying to figure it out. And I think part of that purpose is to expand. Once consciousness exists, it doesn't go away, and it's an interesting thing. It's like what all philosophers kind of talk about. It's like consciousness. Like, what is it? It's just we're here. We can think. There's plenty of other species that can't do that, but we can. So what is our responsibility with that? So it's really cool. Sure. Yeah. And your book, it seems to kind of touch on that too, right? Like I'm guessing you put a lot of thought into that. So how did the writing process like start for you? Cause I'm always curious, cause I have my own writing process, which was kind of like, I call it like basically like a hatchet job. I was just like hacking away at like putting together a book. Like I didn't intend to write a book. It just kind of came about. What was your process to go about doing it? And like, how long did it take?
Well, I think it took me probably a couple of years, I would say, because with a full-time job and a family and all that kind of stuff, there's only so much time that I can devote to this. Mm-hmm. And also because I wasn't as disciplined as I could have been. But that's part of the enjoyment of it. If I felt like it was work, then maybe I would not have enjoyed it as much as I did. So like I said before, from that first chapter, what kind of was the first one that I wrote and that I started extrapolating. So the way I would make notes whenever I had a thought, or I saw something on TV, or I read something in a magazine, or whatever. I would jot down a thought, be it on my phone or whatever I had around. So jot down a little bit of a note. And then once I had thought about that a little bit more, about what that idea or what have you, then I think I would try to match it with a story. So how in an earthly way, because I don't want to get away, despite what we've been talking about, I don't want to get away from the fact that the book is about more earthly struggles, then I would think, well, how does this fit into a story? What could the characters be like? And how does this idea intertwine with their lives? How are they connected through this idea to the overarching narrative of, humanity moving towards, like colonization missions. And then eventually I would kind of sell that. It's like, okay, well, this kind of makes sense. And I would say, I wasn't, I think some writers are very structured in that they'll plan out either the book or let's say the chapter itself and say, okay, this scene, that scene, and they'll have it all laid out and then they'll start writing. I was more fly by the seat of my pants. I would start typing and then things come up. So I would shift things around and change things here and there until I had something that I was happy with. But like I said, once I matched these ideas with these stories, usually at that point I had an indication as to when this could happen. Like, is it something that happened in the 2000s or in the 2050s, or does it happen before or after this other event or whatnot, to make sure that the chronicle actually was coherent and things didn't happen before they should have, and all that kind of stuff. And that took me a little bit of work, actually saying, okay, well, this can't happen less than 10 years before this thing. You know what I mean? So what is the time span of my book, and how early can this thing happen before that thing happens? So that took me a bit of work. Like I had to work timelines and rework timelines and be like, okay, I think this particular thing could happen in 2034. Okay, good. Okay, and then kind of work from there. So there was a lot of adjustment that way. But so I guess it wasn't a very orderly process. You know, he kind of started with that one chapter and kind of grew from there towards the future, towards the past, try to match ideas with characters, and then make sure that the whole timeline worked out.
Very cool. I don't know if you're aware of the Pomodoro Method. It's basically a time management thing. It be applied to books. Okay. So it basically says like you do, because you mentioned that you just start writing and you just write some more. Like you just get into that kind of flow state, and that's kind of where you want to get to as a writer. And so I'm currently writing my second book right now, because I don't know about you, but having written my first, now it's kind of like you get that first one out and done. You're like, actually, I learned so much from this first one. I think I can do a much better second one. And so I've been looking at the different ways to write. And essentially it's 50 minutes on of nonstop subconscious writing, like, or unconscious writing. You don't stop to ever correct or backspace, or so it's literally just like blah onto the page, so that you're not editing and creating at the same time. And then you take 10 minutes off, and then you do another 50 minutes, and you can do as many of those as you want. But it really puts you in this awesome flow, because what you said sounds a lot like the first book that I wrote too, where I'd write a bit and then I'd be like, oh, okay, I don't really have a structure here. I want to go here. So, okay, I'll do that now. And then, wait, that means I got to change this in the back end. And then and my book wasn't that big, right? It took me about 2-3 months to write. I just did about an hour or two a day. I just religiously just kind of went at it, because I just wanted to get it done. And and your process was a bit longer, but you still had the same elements and then you realize like, oh, I got to do a timeline. So it's cool, because I think, especially nowadays, there's so many new voices getting out into the market, at least with their, what's going on in their heads, because it's so much easier to do it now. Like you're self-published, which is awesome, right? What was that process like? Because I haven't done that self-publishing process yet. So for anybody out there that's listening, that's thinking about, I'd like to write a book and get it out there. What was your process like to get your book out and on Amazon?
Sure. So I'm talking about publishing in a little bit more general terms. So once I thought I had what was a somewhat polished manuscript, I did shop it around to conventional or traditional public houses, publication firms. No success. In fact, that was a learning experience on its own, in the sense that to even get an answer from them took so long, and a lot of them stayed up front that you may never hear from them.
You're right.
They're like, hey, submit your book, do all this work, because it's not only the manuscript. Like some of them will request like a full manuscript. Some of it request, 10,000 words or whatever. But most of them, on top of that, you have to write like a query letter, or and even some of them that even ask for a marketing analysis that you do yourself, like say, what market is this book going to go to? Why would it succeed? And all that kind of stuff. And you're like, okay, it's a lot of work to just put together the package to actually send these people and potentially never hear from them again. I did get a couple of responses that were all negative. I only stuck to Canadian publishers.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even try in the States. So it wasn't maybe if I cast a wider net, might have had some success. But I'm okay with that, honestly. No problems with that, especially being as a first-time author. I think that if I were to do it again, I would try again. Even the fact that I did publish a book, even independently, actually does say something. But I went through that. But I have to say, in let's say the 6 months that I took to actually go through this and wait for responses and all that kind of stuff, the manuscript evolved quite a bit. It's quite a bit more polished.
Mm-hmm.
So what I submitted at the time was not as polished as it would be if I were to do it again. So that was the lesson. But at that point, most of them will not take the same manuscript a second time, and I didn't want to wait months and months and months.
Right. Once
I have something that I feel is really, really polished, to actually just put it out there, because I would like to eventually be a traditionally published author, but it's not. It's not the end of it all. I think getting something out there is probably more, almost as satisfying. So once I let go of that, or went through that, and I kind of continued to work the manuscript in the background of this, then I decided, well, I'm gonna do it myself. And then there's a couple of options in that, which you probably maybe, I don't know how you did it for your book, but you can actually get one of these houses where you can actually pay them to publish.
Yeah, that's right.
So that did. So basically, you buy a package and they edit it and all that kind of stuff, and make sure it's good to go. And then they do the distribution, also make sure it has the ISBN, and it can go on all these other platforms. And then you could do that. or you can do Amazon, which is what I ended up choosing. And how that works, it's actually fairly simple. That's the last bit that I did. Like I just recently actually finished the book. So let's say like mid-February, no, early February, let's say.
Okay, cool.
Actually finished everything, and then I gave it to my proofreader to go through the whole thing, and then that was a bit more work once I got all the notes back and all the track changes and all that kind of stuff. But once I had it done. Actually, getting on Amazon took me, I want to say, a week. It's a matter of signing up with their Kindle Direct Publishing, and then uploading your manuscript and all that kind of stuff is really simple. Well, it was really simple for me. It may be a little bit less simple depending on what you're using to write, what software you're using in particular. But after that, you can because it's the same text, right? So you upload it in ebook format and put it out there, and then you can upload it in paperback format, for which the formatting is a little bit different. And then you can go from there. Like, it depends on how much work you want to do on your cover, if you're going to have some a designer define your cover and all that kind of stuff. Mine isn't. What's on the cover is a picture that I took. So it was pretty simple.
Cool.
But it's not even a star.
Yeah. What is it? I'm curious.
So you're going to be the first one to know. So you consider yourself lucky. So it's not a star. What it is that in late 2020, Mars was closest to the Earth that it will be in a long, long time. Oh. So it was really, really big and bright in the night sky, more so than usual. So that's Mars, actually. Just taking a photo that I took myself of Mars.
I knew it had to have some sort of significance. You wouldn't just put it on our side. So, okay, cool. Yeah, you answered that question for me. So that was 2020. That was last year.
2020, yeah, late 2020.
Okay.
But
cool.
and if I can give you another plug, and if any of your readers are ever thinking about writing a book, or maybe if you're going to write another one, so there's a piece of software out there called Scribbler. Okay. You buy this thing, and I think for like $50 you get a lifetime license. And basically, it's a software made for writers. So once you open it up, it has a word editor, obviously, but on the left-hand side, it has like your folder structure as a binder. So you can like move chapters around automatically, and like scenes. And then there's a way that you can see all of these things as little cue cards, you know what I mean, on like a cardboard, and you can like rearrange them so that they make sense, as opposed to having to do like cut and paste on Word, or some kind of nonsense like that. Most importantly, it actually compiles, like a program does, the document for whatever format you wanted. So once you've done writing and you hit compile, you choose compile novel manuscript, and it'll put it out in a Word format in a manner that is to be printed as a novel. You can also do it for ebook format. You can do it for different things, right? And all those parameters are adjustable. So that's what I used to write for this book, which proved to make my task easier when it came time to actually put it on Amazon.
Right. So yeah, we'll have to drop that link in the show notes. That's cool. I'm always, because for me, I usually just bang everything out in Google Docs, and then I kind of figure out, well, where do I want to put it? What I did before was I just used the Apple, was it iBooks Author, which I think is just I don't even think they have it anymore, but that's what I'm doing for my new one. Anyways, I'm writing it on Google Docs, and then I'm just going to transfer it over when I need to. So. Okay, very cool. So the process, for anybody that's interested, like, because I a lot of people I talk to, right, they're like, oh man, I got this idea for a book, but the overwhelming majority of people, they don't take action. So it's cool to see that you went forward with it. And so, like, what was that moment where you're like, okay, I'm going to put pen to paper. I'm actually gonna get this shit done. Like, because a lot of people start and then they usually don't publish, because this is from what I've learned anyways, like most people are scared to put their book out there because they're scared of criticism, like most things in life, right? They're scared of like, oh, people are going to think it's shit. But let's be honest, most authors don't sell more than like 1,000 copies in their lifetime. So, and most people that are going to buy it, they're going to say, yeah, it's great. It's not going to blow up. So it's more, like you said, it's a labor of love. And so what was that motivation for you to get it out there and be like, no, I'm going to commit to this? Cause like you said, you got kids, you got a career, you got a wife, like you got all these other commitments. Writing a book is another massive one. So what was the moment that you're like, hey dude, yeah, I'm doing this. Let's get after it.
Yeah. I think that at some point I just decided that I wanted to accomplish that, well, quote unquote, feat of putting a book out there. And actually, without trying to sound too narcissistic, I do feel like it's a little bit special. I at least for me, I have not read a book, and maybe they probably exist, I just haven't read them, with this particular format where all the chapters are so different and all that kind of stuff, and maybe loosely connected. It's not a collection of short stories, but it's not quite an anthology either. I find that there's something that is going to pique some interest. I would like to think. So I had fun writing it. I enjoyed, because it all this thinking that I do also, and the research that I said that I promised me to do, it actually it provided a driving force to do some more of that. You know what I mean? As opposed to just thinking about something and saying, hey, that's a cool idea, and then forget about it.
Right.
This forced me to just what, this could go in the book. So maybe I'm going to write it down. Maybe I'm going to research a little bit more, and then maybe it makes a cut or it doesn't or whatever. So it kind of provided me a little bit of motivation to do a bit more of the things that I actually already enjoyed doing. So yeah. In that sense, it was simple, but to address another comment that you made just before that, I doubted that I was going to put this out there until very recently. You know what I mean? It's like, really? Okay, I have something.
You're doubting putting this
actually
beast?
really going to put it out there?
Yeah, it's crazy when you think about it. Like you put all that time and everything, but that's 3 years of work. You're like, well, just for me.
Yeah. But I thought about it. I was like, well, maybe not. You know what I mean? Like, I'm actually going to do it. And I was telling my wife, I'm really thinking I'm going to put this book out there. And she supports me, obviously, through and through.
Shout out to AJ.
Yeah, shout out to AJ, of course. The book dedicated to her, of course.
Of course.
So I was really doubtful. And then when I said, yeah, maybe I'm going to put it out there, I was like, well, do I use a pen name or do I put it under my own name? Do I own it, or do I just put it out there and see what people think? You know what I mean? Without having to take the personal responsibility for the criticism or whatever.
Yeah, right.
And at the end of the day, I said, you know what? I'm just going to do it, because I think that's, on some level, that's what I always wanted to do anyways. I just needed to get over whatever hesitation I was having. And then it's out. And honestly, like you said, for the people that are thinking about it out there, like if you can bring yourself to write, you know what I mean, do it. And then the last leap of like, okay, I got something that I could put out there and actually putting it out there, just do it. Like you said, as long as I guess you're not writing things that are going to make a bunch of people angry, I suppose, in this day and age. You're not going to make that many waves, you know what I mean? Maybe you're not going to blow out. Maybe some of your friends and family are going to read the book, they're going to enjoy it, and you're going to feel good about yourself, about the fact that you did that. So why not? I mean, the downside is so small, I think, you know what I mean?
I agree.
Even for me, you know what I mean? Like, I'm a very social media private person. Like, I'm not on social media a lot and whatnot. Like, I got to tell you, since I put this book out there, I'm trying to get it out there a little bit, trying to, show it to people and whatnot. Is the most activity that I've made on social media, I think, since I've been on social media, which is like,
yeah.
I think I got a Facebook
well,
or something like that,
Because I saw you on the Canadian Venture Marketplace, and I was like, Manny, I've never seen you post in in 15 years, never seen. And then I'm like, wait, you wrote up. I was like, oh my God. It was like a big flashing red light. Like, okay, I got to reach out because obviously this is something that's really important because you're making a post about, which is really cool. And this kind of touches on like a lot of things that we talk about in like our community, right? It was just mindset, because it's the mindset of, I wrote this, I put the time and effort into it. I want other people to appreciate, you know, what I've written, and I hope people glean something from it. And I guess the biggest, and this may not resonate with you, but for me, I guess the reason why I kind of shifted from, you know, being a teacher and doing my thing in my own class, and not really taking the leap and writing about and talking about the things I actually want to talk about. You know, I was stuck in this world on my own, just in my own thoughts. And it was when I took this one business seminar, and this one dude who I didn't really know obviously really well, he was just a business leader. He called me selfish, and that fucked me up, man. I was like, I'm not a selfish human being. He's like, yeah, you are. He's like, you got all these ideas and this ability to help people. You're not putting it out in the world. You just keep it to yourself. You're being selfish. Other people can benefit. That's selfish. And I was like, whoa, I never thought about it that way. And it got me angry. It got me angry because I was like, you don't know me. And then I was like, wait, why am I getting angry? I'm like, oh, it's because he's right. Like he's bang on. And so that for me was something that resonated. And, you know, whether it resonates with you or anybody else that's listening, you know, the mindset of, you know, either keeping things to yourself and just having them run through your head and just be worried like, oh, nobody's going to want to listen. Nobody's going to want to read this. Or on the other side of that coin is, no, I want to share and then potentially grow. And whether somebody reads it or not, the process, like the one you described, is really important, because it puts you into another realm. And we're talking like expanding consciousness and stuff like that. Like I don't know, there's something about being able to explore your own thoughts and put it on paper or talk about it on a podcast that brings a lot of satisfaction anyways to my life. And it seems like just from the way you talk about your book that you've got another understanding about yourself, but that it gives you a little bit more energy, and like it gives you another thing and a legacy, right? Because this exists for life, right? So, you know, Manny Panchana is an author. That is something that you have for life, and that, you know, your kids can grab and be like, hey, look, Dad's book, you know, like, so it's commendable, man.
It's holding the coffee table straight.
Yeah. Hey, everything's got a function, and whether people read it or people use it as a bookend or as a way to hold up their tables, and it doesn't matter. It's out there in the universe. It exists. So, Manny, why don't you let the listeners know where they can? Well, first of all, you know, find a copy so they can read it, and then if they want to reach out to you, where can they do that?
Sure. Just one last piece of advice before I do that.
Yeah.
Because I found this to be a very good piece of advice. And I'm glad that I actually did this with my book. For self-published authors out there, this is going to cost you probably a little bit of money unless you have somebody in your family who can do it for free. But have somebody proofread your book, okay? Because after you write a lot, your brain is not going to see the mistakes anymore, because you've read the same thing so many times. Mm-hmm. It's just not going to see the mistakes. You're going to think that it's all fine. It's not.
I'm literally in that, man. I know exactly what you're talking. I get my wife to do it because I can't see the mistakes. Yeah,
exactly. Because, like, my book is roughly 80,000 words, and I've read it from end to end several times. And when I gave it to my proofreader, when he came back, I was like, wow, I can't believe I missed this thing. You know what I mean? But it'll improve the quality of your final product. So if you have to spend a bit of, for me, you can buy the book on Amazon. It's available internationally, so across all Amazon markets. Mm-hmm. Funnily enough, I've already had people read it in the UK. I've got a couple of people bought it in Germany. So anyhow, available internationally. Just type the Nominal Echo Chronicles on your Amazon search bar, and it'll be there. If you want to reach me, you can actually get the link for the book through my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/MannyPaMo. And I'm on Instagram also at Manuel Panchana Moya. So that's it.
Perfect. We'll drop all those links in the show notes so people can find that book and get a hold of you and give you some kudos because they're due, man. I can't wait to keep on digging into it, man. It's perfect timing because I just finished my last book, so now it's time to dig in. Any thoughts about doing an audiobook on this one?
You know what? Sorry,
an audiobook.
An audiobook. I don't even know how that would work. I guess.
Okay, we'll have to talk.
Sure.
We'll have to talk. We'll have to talk. I got a guy.
Yeah, we'll have to talk. But based on what you said today, I think you'll enjoy the book.
Awesome. I can't wait, man.
A lot of the things that you asked me that I didn't go into very much detail, the book addresses in some pretty direct ways. So, I think you'll enjoy it.
It's awesome. Dude, always a pleasure. We need to figure out ways that are not necessarily on a podcast to chat. So hopefully we'll have the world
when the world is normal again, I'm sure.
Yeah, normal again. We'll have to have a few brews and actually shoot the shit.
For sure.
So again, thanks for coming on the show, man. Good luck with the book sales. So folks, it's the Nominal Echo Chronicles. Get out there, support a fellow member of the Canadian Armed Forces who is now an author, and reach out with any questions, and make sure to leave a good comment on Amazon. That really helps. Give them a good rating. Bump that up in the ratings.
For sure. Manny, that helps out quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's right.
So thanks again, bro. And we'll chat soon.
Thank you very much, man. Appreciate it.
Everybody else listening out there, don't forget, train hard, fight easy. See you on the next one. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. You can find out more about training, nutrition, and mindset at davemorrow.net. Be sure to like us on Facebook and Instagram at DaveMorrowPT. And don't forget, strong people are hard to kill.